we can see it already.
Probably take the right monitor to get started. And here we go.
There we are. Good. Then now an official welcome and hello from our side to our Let's Power Automate session. I'm Lisa. I'm Senior Technical Evangelist and Product Manager at dox42. And I'm super happy to be here together with Johannes this afternoon to introduce you to this session. Also, hi again, Johannes.
Hi, Lisa. Yeah, thanks again for the Power community to host us again. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's such a great community, and of course, it's so cool that we can also be a part of this. Just seeing the other sessions and all the content and everything that's brought out there. And I'm really happy that we can also contribute. I'm Johannes Linder, the Technical Evangelist at dox42, and very much looking forward to a lot of cool live demos today that we can show you all around document automation.
Exactly. So we prepared a lot of things already. One tip before we start, one suggestion, have your phones ready. It's going to be a bit interactive and you might need to scan some QR codes. And why you should do that, let's see that on the next slides. So Johannes already said we've been, so he loves the power, we love the Power community. We've been part of it for a long time. And you can see some pre-COVID pictures here where the event actually still happened live in London, meeting Darth Vader, in Dublin, in Zurich, in Munich. So you can see some pictures. And what you can also see in those pictures, if you look closely, they have something in common. There's a Lego set over there, there's a Lego set circled, and another Lego set circled. So today, Johannes, you already spoiled it.
Oh,
you
my
can
bad,
also
I'm
win
sorry.
a Lego set. All good. It's a good surprise. It's something good to spoil for. So you can win a Lego camper van, not a camper van set, a Star Wars set this time. I think which I think it's really, really cool. For that, we prepared a little quiz for you. So scan the QR code, and actually we will explain you the process behind it later as well, because we're using it in our sales automation. So we're going to be very transparent on how we actually choose a winner and what happens in the background when you participate in our quiz. It's going to be part of the demo. Good. We will also post the link in the chat later on, so you can, or Russ already did, I think. So you can scan the QR code anytime. Good. So what have we actually prepared for you today? So at first, Johannes will introduce you to what is document automation actually, and how can dox42 help you with that. And then I'm going to take over for the live demo part, that we're going to show you a lot of different examples where we use dox42 from CE with Power Automate with our solutions. We're going to show you the template design. We're going to show you dox42 in a SharePoint context from a Power App. We're going to show you how we generate PowerPoint proposals automatically with the Teams integration. And we're going to show you our quiz sales automation. So a real life scenario we're using, and very, very live, because we want you to participate in that one. So stay tuned for that. And in the end, of course, there's going to be time for questions and answers, but feel free to post them along in the chat as you go. And speaking about questions, I think, Johannes, you already have one for the audience, right?
Absolutely, I am curious. So the question to you first. So again, please just put out your phones. I will show you forms in a second, so you will be able to see the answers. It's always good for us to know how many of you have already seen us, or have been talking to us, or who doesn't even know dox42 at all. So just take a quick intro to that quiz, and we'd really appreciate if you can answer. I will, in the meantime, show you the responses in forms. There's more responses coming in. Let's just wait a little longer. Here we go. We are seeing the first ones from the Power community. More to come. Sorry, just here it is with the QR code as well. Okay. So the majority doesn't know anything at all. That is perfect, because we're going to start from scratch. in terms of what dox42 can do. And also basically throughout this whole session, feel free to always ask in the chat. As Lisa said, the good thing about being two people doing such a session is that one can always take care of the chat, so we'll be able to answer you right away, or we also take it into the live demo so we can show you in them as well. We try to keep this as interactive as possible. So we will also later on ask you something where based on this, then we can also take different focuses on in the live demos. So the more interactive we can do this, the better. Right. So why document automation and what are the challenges and why is there even a product for it? Is it not just that with a single bulk letter you can do everything yourself? And the challenge that we see, especially nowadays when it comes to the Power Platform, to the Microsoft ecosystem, is that there are some nice approaches that each work in different applications. There's an option that you can do in Power Apps. There's an option you can do in Finance and Operations, in BC, also in SharePoint. But the challenge usually is that with the current strategy of the Microsoft ecosystem, same with Power Automate, you want to integrate different data sources into your documents. And in those documents, you don't only want to have like very easy information like first name, last name, or any kind of like search, just structural data. The idea is that you want to have complex contracts, you want to have images, barcodes, you want to have automated tables, maybe visualizations that you then put into Power Automate or in PowerPoint, send them out as emails. And that's kind of the thought of dox42, that you have one service that you can use across all your different applications, not only in the Microsoft ecosystem, but also beyond, and use it for many, many different output options. With the best part, all of the design you do in Microsoft Office, so Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. What are the challenges? Or how do we see that this is done with most of our customers before they go ahead with a professional way of doing document automation? You probably all know, we all do, and every now and then, the copy pasting. Probably one of our biggest competitors, even though it's not a company. But the copy pasting, of course, you just take the old one, put in some information, take also the errors that are there. And at the end of the day, there is no chance from an organizational thought to put out a cool document that will then be used by everybody, because everybody uses the version from back then. And it just is very time consuming for all of us to create documents. This is something that could be automated. The alternative, where there are really nice approaches already, is of course in the app sphere. So you kind of the app area, but also from kind of the old school macro way. We all know the guy that is the perfect macro expert. If the person is not here, is leaving the organization, we all have a problem, because that macro is only it can only be maintained by that specific user. So it's called automated, but it's not like a kind of automation that could be integrated into Power Apps, Power Automate, Dynamic CRM, Finance and Operations. And of course, there is the very, very classics of, hope some of you know them, but I hope nobody suffers too much from them. SQL Server Reporting services, or generally the way you work with the classic old school programmatic applications to do document automation. And of course, they are 100% server-side automated, but at the end of the day, the documents look ugly. Your CI is nowhere close to what you or for your customers you want it to be. And also, that is very important, is usually needs to be maintained by IT, where even in IT, it's better if the business units can design it themselves. And that's kind of the approach that we try to get in process-wise. And at the end of the day, the IT, business, and marketing users will be able, based on their requirements, to have a very slim and easy process for document automation, where business and marketing can maintain Word, Excel, and PowerPoint documents, but more from an IT perspective, or even like the citizen developer perspective, you can include this in Power Automate, while still it can be maintained by the users automatically. A little bit about ourselves. We currently have 500 customers with around 100 partners. So if you work with an organization that uses Power Automate productively, then of course, if it's a customer scenario, get in touch with us. But also, very importantly, if you are a partner that would be interested in doing this for your customers, we are very interested to get to know you, to also see whether there is any chances you can have this in your portfolio to put it to your customers. Yeah, and the focus so far has been mainly DACH region. We are expanding to the UK, to the Benelux. And I think the good thing is it's something that is ready to be used across all industries. Maybe every now and then, even back in the days when we were on site, there was a person sitting in the audience who was maybe with the organizations that we already had on there. So maybe you are in one of these organizations and you might already be a user, or you don't know that dox42 exists in your organization, and you would be able to use it right away. Okay, in terms of just a customer case, high quality documents, in this case from Dynamics 365. There's a very, very nice example that we have. So if you want to buy a yacht, which hopefully after learning all this weekend, we will be able to afford at some point. This Fraser Yachts is a customer of ours. They produce high quality yachts directly from their Dynamics CRM. So basically with button. But they can also do it. Basically, if there's any changes in the data, they will can automatically trigger Power Automate that would then get together all the information required in a SharePoint, in Teams, to build up that template and then save it into a SharePoint library right away. So basically, the one that is needing that quote invests in the document generation probably 10 seconds. But just only the only thing they need to provide is what products they want to include. So it's a very easy thing that before that used to be like 3 or 4 hours of manual work to put everything together. Very similar to that, ABB, there is a CRM integration in this case. And I think the good thing for usually our customers is that it starts with a project, but since we are cross technology and cross also business units, you can use it in many, many different projects for the document automation. So even you might start with a Power Automate SharePoint scenario, but the next one would be something where you'd have even a SQL database or maybe something in Dynamics, and that would come out together. Or what more and more customers are picking up from our impression is that Power Automate would, for example, be kind of the path that would then fulfill the process. And at some point of the process, you need a document, and another you again need a document. But that's something we will also see in the live demos, of course, later on a lot. That's the way it looks to the designers. On the left-hand side, you have the dox42 add-in, where the blue field is any data field coming from all of the data sources. And those data sources can then be integrated into the document via drag and drop. And that's the data sources. Very importantly, so everything you see here can be integrated in a dox42 document. Most importantly, and that's probably one of the most important informations about today, you can combine them as well. So if you want, for example, to trigger Power Automate with document generation, that should pick data from Dataverse, from Dynamics, FO, and from SharePoint, you can do that. The same flexibility we also have on the output side, but I'll get to that in a second. I promise that we want to create basically the live demo, so the time we will spend on each of the different scenarios that Lisa has mentioned would be very helpful if you could help us with this, because the more we know what you are interested in, the more we can spend time on those that are then the one you're interested in the most. So feel free to reach out your phones again and answer the question. I will again pull over forms in a second. Thank you all for actively engaging. So we see, of course, Dataverse, Power Automate, Power Apps, SharePoint, Teams, CRM. Not so much BC and FinOps today, but of course there are other events for this. Dataverse, Power Automate, perfect. There is a lot that, especially the first ones that we already had in place, will focus on these. So yeah, makes sense. If you're, by the way, interested still in BC or FinOps, feel free to reach out via LinkedIn or even via email, and we would be, of course, also able to demo this. We will not put the focus on this today in the other live demos, but those, certainly all of them are included in our live demos. Thank you for actively engaging. I think it's, well, for us, it's the best if we can show you what you're interested in. That's very helpful for us. Okay. I promised the output options. So that's what we can provide the document to. So from kind of a little bit of architecture background. What we do is the service itself is kind of independent from whatever application it's called, but also whatever application it gets to. So in the input, you'd call that service, generate the document based on, for example, CE Dataverse data, and then you'd be able to then save it into SharePoint, or you'd save it into, well, Teams. Since you just visualize the SharePoint library in Teams, you'd be able to do that as well, send out emails, get creative also with digital signatures. Just check. Oh yeah, there's also a couple of responses that we got on the digital signatures part. So the EasyJet, for example, reference that we saw initially also is a case where this is used. And there used to be a very manual process for a COVID-specific case of a contractual scenario. And now 900 employees get a document at once that they would then just sign, even without a signature account. They would be able to do that on the phone, so no desktop needed. And that would then basically sign it, and that would be then again informed back to the HR department. In their case, in the first 3 days, they had 97% signed. And before, when it was a manual process, as you can imagine, you need to have a printer, etc., etc. What I'm trying to say here is document automation, very importantly for us, is usually 95% for us part of a digital process. So printing, there are still very few that do it, but generally it's a digital thing. Those of you who work with Power Automate, well, of course, we will show that a lot today. There's also an integration that we have into other ISVs for the process and Power Automate integration. So for Firestart, Nintex, and K2. So depending on the customer scenario, like I said, the web service itself can be called from the application like SharePoint, Power Automate, but of course also something like Firestart, Nintex, etc. Good. Checking the time. Try to be quick on this one because we prefer to do a lot of live demos. So Lisa, what's the plan?
Yes, there's a lot on the plan. So thank you for showing us the theory and what dox42 can do. And now we're gonna switch to the practical part where we're really gonna prove you that we can do it.
Perfect. I just thought there was some more responses.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, we will definitely going to show you flows with a trigger from Dataverse and with data coming from Dataverse. That's also going to be the first scenario, sales quote automation from D365 CE and Power Automate. Then I think you also mentioned, of course, Power Apps and Power Automate. Yes, we're going to show you that in all of our scenarios. A Power App we're going to have for the HR document scenario. And yes, the template design we're going to show you with D365 CE data, but also with SharePoint data. And afterwards, a sales quote proposal, so actually a PowerPoint presentation where we're going to have a Teams integration also through Power Automate, which we're showing. And finally, the quiz automation. So don't forget about participating there. Good. So I'm going to share my screen now with you. So let's switch from Johannes to me. And we're in CE. Great. So the first scenario I mentioned is a sales quote generation from D365 CE. And in our demo scenario, what we're selling is solar panels. So here we are in CE and we have a quote here. And what we have is 3 different products we want to include in that quote. And here we have the customer information, we have an email address of the customer, and so on. So now you may think that solar panels can be quite a complex product. So it might not be enough to just generate a quote document, which has a table with 3 items, but not so much additional information. That might not be enough. So what we thought in our processes in this demo, how can we really provide and show a cool demo scenario where we integrate data from here, but also other very important project information and project documents within one quote. So what we have done here next to the quote here, we have here the quote ID, which you can see. And for that one, we set up a folder within SharePoint where all the team members that were involved in the solar panels project uploaded their additional information. So in this case, different documents. what do we have? At first, we have a cover letter, so someone from marketing, they actually saw if there are even enough sunshine hours on where the customer wants to use the solar panels. That's a Word document. Then we have the technical team who is not working with Dynamics. They just do their calculations within Excel, for example, and they calculated how many hours it will take to actually install and prepare the connection plan. Then we have a PowerPoint slide, a PowerPoint presentation we would like to integrate as a picture that shows something, and then a small incentive from marketing. They have like a special deal, and I'm just going to change the color on that so that we can see that we're working with live data here and live documents. Okay, so those are the documents that should be integrated in my one quote document I want to generate. I'm the salesperson, and so I want to have my quote with me now. I want to see the quote. I might want to send it out to the customer. And all I have to do is here within Dynamics, I use the dox42 integration. And there are different ways on how to use that integration. One of that is the dox42 pop-up. So within the dox42 pop-up, I have the option I can choose, okay, which templates, which dox42 templates in which languages I want to choose. In my case, I only have English templates here with me at the moment. And then I can choose between different templates. In my dropdown, I say I want to generate the sales quote. And then here I could also decide if I want a PDF or a docx. I want a PDF for now, and I could attach it to a CRM email right away. At the moment, I just want to generate a PDF and download it in my browser. So what does dox42 do right now? So in the background, it's calling the template and it's integrating the data from CE and also from SharePoint. So this is where you see already what Johannes introduced you before, that you can combine different data sources. It caught the data and returned it back into my document. Cool. So we have our document ready here, and we can see here is a logo inserted. We have the address of the customer. Here we have a QR code that was dynamically added. Then this was the first Word document we've seen that was stored on SharePoint. Here we have a dynamic table with our 3 products that come from CE. Here, that was the Excel file, and if you remembered, I changed the hours to 12 from 14, so we can see that this is live. And down on the last page, we have the picture of the PowerPoint inserted, as well as the other Word document. And here, this is now in green because I changed it to the color green. Cool. So this is how a quote can look like. And to be honest, I think it's a nice looking one, and I think we can send it to the customer. There's just one thing I see here. It's a 25% discount. I think we can grant a bit more to the customer. The customer is a really loyal one. We really like them. We've been in business with them for a long time. So I want to go back before sending it out, and I'm going to change it from 25 to, let's say, 30%. And I'm saving it now. And now what I could do is that whenever it's saved, I could use dox42 again, for example, via the pop-up or via separate buttons. And I could say to dox42, okay, generate the document again as a PDF, create a draft email, and then attach the document, for example, send it via email straight to the customer, attach it to the entity, and so on. I could do that. However, I don't need to, because when I did the change now from 25 to 30%, in the background, the Power Automate flow was triggered. That's using the dox42 Power Automate connector. It regenerated my document and stored it for me on SharePoint. Let's have a look at that flow at first. Okay, I'm going to manage my flows. And then we can see here we have a Dataverse sales quote flow, and we can see 32 seconds ago that it succeeded. I'm going to show you that in a second, but just so that you can see. Okay, we start here with a Dataverse trigger where we say, okay, whenever something on the quote is changed, then take the dox42, connect to the dox42 service call. Here we have the call added, generate the document with some variables and store it for me on SharePoint. Let's have a look. Let's go to the SharePoint. It's gonna be on that SharePoint sales quotes, and there we go. About a minute ago by me, because we're working with Azure Active Directory in the background, the quote solar panels was generated. Here we have dynamic metadata that was also generated with it. Here's the document, and if I zoom in, we can see that now the discount is a 30% discount. Cool. If we just go back to Power Automate for a second, so just a hint for you. Basically, so you can see here a dox42 connector. There are two ways on how you can get that. You could either work with the custom connectors, you could import it from Git, or what you can also do, you just go to connectors. And here, you're probably familiar with it. You might know all the connectors. You just search for dox42 and you will find it here in your list as well with the premium connectors, so you can easily add it to all your calls. Good. And so this was the first scenario, generating a quote from the end user's perspective. You just click a button, or you let it, or you trigger a flow, and the document gets generated. It gets stored on SharePoint, for example, automatically. You can send it by email, which we will show you a bit later today, and so on. Now, let's also have a look on how it actually, the dox42 processor, how working with dox42 looks like for a template designer. I'm going back to my SharePoint, and I'm managing my templates from SharePoint Online. I'm going to my sales templates, and I'm opening my sales quote here. And we can see now the template. So that's it. Now that's the same document we've seen before, just instead of all the data, we see a lot of colorful data fields. Those are the placeholders for the dox42 data fields. And now if I double click one field on the right-hand side, the Data Field Explorer opens, and I can see exactly where my field comes from. In that case, it comes from a data source called organizations, and the field is called name. So that's the name, the customer name. If I, for example, click on this one, I can see that it comes from a SharePoint data source. It's also called name. And here's a type Word document. So it's going to be the first Word document we've seen that's inserted here. Good. And before I show you some more, if I go up here to dox42, here's the add-in, where I have like all the functionalities to design my templates, to add the logic and so on. And I can always, whenever I test something or whenever I set up my templates, I can always generate my documents locally as well. So just click on generate, and now we've connected live to Dynamics in the background. I say I want to generate the solar panels document again, and now it's going to be returned here for me within Word. So it's integrating data from SharePoint and from Dynamics, and let's view it side by side so we can have a better overview of what happened from template to the generated document. For example, we can see that this block turned into the address. There's also a QR code that was added. Here again, we have the first Word document, or down here we have a dynamic table where we just have the data fields inserted once, but you can see that the table has 3 lines. That's because we had 3 products in Dynamics. If we had 5, the table would have 5 lines, for example. Or here, the freight amount, we can see here is a line for freight, but in a generated document, it's not shown at all. This is because we have a condition here, and our condition says only fill in that line if from my sales quote, the freight amount is not empty. But apparently it was empty, so it wasn't inserted. And as we scroll down, we can see the PowerPoint as well as the other Word document. And again, we can see here we work with a type. Good. And of course, where does my data come from? From the data map designer. This is where you actually connect to the data sources. And as Johannes has mentioned to you before, there are a lot of different data sources you can use and you can actually combine. Like here, we're using our D365 CE/Dataverse data source. So we have lots of data from there. We're also using our SharePoint data source. We have some Excel data sources, but you could also integrate databases, XML, JSON, Word, BC, FO, SAP, and so on. We're not going to cover all of them today. So if you want to see more of them, just let us know and contact us afterwards. Good. So that was the first scenario, sales quote scenario from CE and from Power Automate, as well as a glimpse on the template design. And now let's have a look at the second scenario. And I'm passing the mic back to Johannes, and this is going to be an HR scenario, including contracts.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I need a volunteer. So if you'd be willing to volunteer for being the one that the document is generated for, just type in a yes into the chat. I just need a name, no worries. I will create a dummy email address, but anybody would be cool. Office 365 admin. Perfect. I'll take the first one that has a real name. So perfect. Thanks, guys. Already have some. Just thank you, Mohammed. You've been the first one to have a. Let me just putting this here. So what I'd like to show you now is this one I'd like to have. So basically, well, thanks again for everybody contributing. So we already have the first one to win, at least for the one being in the contract. So what this is a standard SharePoint list, and it will give a lot of options in the outputs. We will get to that in a second. The first thing that I'd like to do here, Mohammed, I will include you here. You can, in the meantime, already think about, let me just open the Teams chat again. That what you want to have as a special agreement. So for that, I just include a dummy email address. So you will not be stalked by all of us. Test.com. The phone value will be anything. You can choose a position, sales manager, trainee, or developer. You just put it in the chat. Developer, perfect. Just that you can have a special agreement and you can wish for anything you want. Unlimited vacation, cars, flights, whatever you want. Type get this car. That is very important. So of course we want in the contract later on to make this a lot bigger. Let's make it red and make it bold. So that will be in the document. And then we have a salary. Hope this is per minute salary, so we can all at some point afford the Fraser yards that we mentioned initially in the session. So this is there. And this email will receive the email in a second about the contract. So let's say this is an onboarding scenario, but I will also be able to show this because there is in CC our HR manager, Michaela Mitarbeiter. With the pronunciation, you can tell we are from Austria. But it's not only that it's automatically generated, but again, similar to what Lisa's shown in the CE generation, there is also dox42 app for, in this case, SharePoint. So you can just deploy it to SharePoint Online. You again have many different output options where you can save it. You can even save multiple at the same time. So we don't only have the option to output one document at a time, but many at a time. You have the open as PDF one. Maybe. Let's try again. And what it does, basically same principle as before, generating the document, and I will have a local one this time again with Muhammad. Thank you very much again. You being the one in the contract with also the contracts. So like the table of contents is dynamically based on the input that you have from the different slides and the different documents that get integrated into the document. Then, of course, it's confidential, as we are a session of around 120 people at the moment. Not so confidential anymore. Then get a nice car, very important. And the last one is a subdocument that gets integrated into the document in the moment where we select the developer. So based basically on the metadata, it looks in another SharePoint library for the right subdocument that will then also be integrated. Good. So we will have a look into the template in a second as well. There's just the other outputs that I would like to show you. That's the email that got generated automatically with Power Automate. As you see here, again, the name, developer, we have all the information. This could be dynamic as well. And attached, you will find the very same contract that we have already generated with a little different design, but it's just there's different templates that we can choose, for example, from the background. So that's another output option, the email. And of course, what we'd like to show you as well is, so let's think about a Power App that would be basically the one that, let's say not everybody's using the desktop client, but there would be, for example, colleagues that would be somewhere on site, they'd be able to work with an app. Yeah, that would be, for example, then the app that would be based on the SharePoint list, where we can also do the generation. In this case, maybe let's show you also some changes. Salary. You get a raise. Not a big one. Let's make it nicer one. So, isn't it good? You've been in this job for 10, 20 minutes and you already get a raise. I wish I could work here too. All right. So this already again triggered, in this case, then the dox42 service, but it did the output into an all contracts library. And there is the one that we generated. And again, the same document, but in this case, triggered from Power Automate, from the Power App, sorry, into SharePoint as the output. And in there, you can, of course, also include metadata. So if we have a look here, you'd be included here. And that's, by the way, the flow contract that got generated the moment we added you as the employee. And then it did the output in that library as well. So what we're trying to show here is that you can basically pick where is the input, where is the output. Our underlining thing is the template design in the middle. And similar to what we have seen previously by Lisa, there is a SharePoint library that has the employee contract up here. What I was just wanted to show you briefly is, here is the position with the remuneration policy that we integrated. So basically, based on the position, that would be the subdocument. And the main document is already something that was previously defined in the call. So there is a dox42 command bar config that you deploy with this app. And then we've just seen the pop-up of the Azure AD login. So I'm being impersonated. And again, here, same way with the data fields, with the conditions, with the different data sources, with data fields that I can, of course, add if I want to. And of course, always the way to locally generate. And also here we're testing live data. So after this recording, Mohammed, you're now famous. And there we go. Also with the local generation again. Right, and there we go. Similar to what we've seen previously with Lisa, is that there is, again, the replacement, but it's just a different scenario. And I think that's very important, that if it's business-wise, a contract, if it's a quote, if it's whatever document, of course, business context is different. Technically, still, it's quite the same, right? It's tables, it's barcodes, it's images. It can be any kind of complexity into that document, and that's the underlying point, that it's not so much business relevant of the scenario, but technically we can do a lot that you can then translate into business scenarios, either for your organization or for your customers. Good. So much for HR. What's up next, Lisa?
Next is a very beautiful PowerPoint proposal from Dynamics and Power Automate. Let's have a look at that one. Cool. So thank you for showing that HR scenario. I think it's really cool to see that it's really can be used across the whole business, across any document need you have, and it doesn't actually need to be a Word document or a PDF. Maybe that's the first thing you think of when you think of a document, but it can also be any kind of report, any kind of presentation, anything based on Word, Excel, or PowerPoint templates, so to say. And that's why in our next example here, so we're back in Dynamics and we're back with the solar panels once again. But now we're generating a proposal and we want to impress the potential customer with a really nice looking PowerPoint presentation. And once it's the same principle as before, I have some information here about the current situation, about the proposed solution, about the customer, and I also have some additional information on SharePoint, some pictures and some sub-documents I want to integrate. And then up here, I have the Dynamics solution, the dox42 Dynamics solution again, where I could generate a PPTX, a PDF, I could send it by email, save it to SharePoint, and so on. But what I will do now is, because today is the focus on Power Automate, I'm going to use our Power Automate connector for that in the background again. So again, I'm changing something here, and maybe I change a bit of the text. So that's really just our sample triggers. I save it, and now again, dox42 Power Automate flow is triggered. It's generating the email, and the presentation sends it by email and also sends that email to a Teams channel. But first, let's check our flows again. So that's the PowerPoint proposal Dataverse flow, so to say. It's running at the moment, so we can see that it's triggered. And if I go on edit, you can see that here, whenever within an opportunity something is changed, then the dox42 service gets called. By the way, if you're wondering, okay, but the query string, how to get it there, we have an application called dox42 Server Designer, and with that you can really easily just click your calls together, and then you can just copy and paste it within here. Good. So that's that. That has succeeded. Now let's have a look within our teams. I here have my teams available. I go to my sales team, and then I can see that right now an email was sent, the sales proposal. That's actually, again, a dox42 template. And if I have a closer look at that email, which opened just here on the site, basically I can now see a solar panels proposal, a PowerPoint in the attachment. And enable editing. So we can see for Adventure CO, that's the customer. We have some pictures here again. We have, again, it's about the solar panels. So those pictures that come from SharePoint. We have dynamic tables, dynamic slides added. I think a really nice presentation to convince the customer of our solar panels, so to say. Good. So that's that scenario. And now let's go to the final scenario, what I've proposed in the beginning, this and what we're really using in the background, our quiz automation. So that's our final demo scenario for today. So I hope you've scanned the QR code. Maybe you've already filled in the answers for that quiz already, or if not, we can do it now together. But basically, we're going to show you now how we're really live in the background are using Power Automate to help us with the whole process of all the entries for the quiz and how we notify our winners. Good. So we have our quiz. I'm going to fill in the quiz, but I'm not guaranteeing you that I'm giving you the right answers here. It's just you have to pay close attention to find out, or maybe you already did, what the correct answers are. But let's see. Let's fill this in. Which data sources can dox42 integrate? I would say I can integrate all of them. Where can we design? So we saw PowerPoint and we saw Word. Okay, I can see some questions already coming in from the chat. Very nice. All of the above I've seen. Good. So let's choose that one. Then what can you win by participating? Can we win a free trial? Nothing. A Lego set or one red bike? What do you think? Okay, someone participating. I think it was a Lego set. Oh, one red bike. Okay, someone says a free trial. Yes, you can also win a free trial, of course. Let's choose. Anyway, I want to have the Lego set. I'm going to stick with that one. Then the name, I'm going to give mine and my email address so I can actually show you what's happening in the background. My company name, so please also fill in yours. And then how do we wish to stay in touch? Of course, we want a news update. Of course, we want to get the 30-day free trial that's available to all of you. Just either a ticket here or get it from dox42.com/contact. And then I have a scenario, and that's it. Good. So now I'm submitting this, and now I'm participating in the quiz. And what's actually happening now in the background is that two Power Automate flows are triggered. Let's have a look at them. So the first one is that whenever a new response is submitted from our forms, the response details are taken and an item is created in SharePoint. You'll see that later, okay? And once this is done, we have a second flow that's actually kicking in. And that second flow is taking the item that's created. Here it does some authentication. It uses the dox42 Power Automate Premium Connector. So here's some authentication steps for Azure Active Directory. It does the dox42 service call, and it actually notifies you by email that you've participated in that quiz. So if you've participated, you received an email already that was generated with dox42 using a dox42 Word template in the background that was sent to you by email, but we will see that, okay? And then here we are within SharePoint. I'm only showing the participants with, I'm just gonna move that here on that screen for a second, because I'm only showing the dox42 participant because of data protection reasons, of course. I don't want to show all your company names, but basically we can see that the flow has added me here to the list to the quiz response list. It's just a filtered view. And then let's check my emails. There we go. I also received an email that says, thank you for participating. So that was actually sent with the dox42 Power Automate flow in the background that I participated. Very good. And then, so we will notify the winner after the session, but just to let you know how we will do that, we will use a random number generator to decide for an ID who is going to win it. We then are going to select the winner, which is just going to be me for an example for now. We're going to use dox42 again, and we say inform quiz winner so that then dox42 can automatically notify the winner by email, and you know that you have won the Lego set. And just to show you that email, so you know when this one is in your inbox, you know if you are the lucky winner of the Lego set. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for you that it's going to be you, that you will receive that email with this really cool Star Wars Yoda. Cool. And those were the live scenarios, the demo scenarios. We've seen a lot across different platforms, across different applications, Power Apps, Power Automate quizzes. and so on. And now back to Johannes.
I'm always tempted to just try and win the Lego myself.
True.
Yeah, you should probably know one thing. One thing we really love at dox42 is Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. So I have a tiny Darth Vader on my desk, and our rooms are called Rivendell and the Shire. So those films,
really cool.
Incredible. Probably shouldn't start this from the beginning. There we go. Just a little recap. What we've seen today is our approach to intelligent, high-quality document automation with, of course, the design in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, with the flexibilities, as you've seen, in a lot of different data sources. This kind of but it really sticks to the trends that we have currently in terms of the ERP and Microsoft trends. So especially when you think about it used to be a lot like, especially in the on-prem way, that the applications were each of them an island. That has now disappeared, which is good. And you can work with each of them. And we see customers picking up, for example, a combination of CRM and finance and operations. And of course, with Teams, also SharePoint. So why not use the best out of them? And for document automation, use the Lego brick of dox42 and save time. And as Lisa has shown, also the options that the Power Platform, as well as, for example, Teams and SharePoint, give you in terms of collaboration. Use them because you have them already out of the box. And then in these cases, the users don't have new interfaces. It's just in the background, a more intuitive implementation. There have been some questions in the chat that I just like to answer quickly. So Ahmed, there was the one where you asked about the service and whether it can be hosted or it can be in a private cloud. From us, you can decide. So either you get a service that you decide for yourself, like a standard IIS web service, that you decide for yourself whether you want to put it on in a private cloud and host it in Azure, or maybe even have another on-prem installation. Or we have the dox42 SaaS, which is offered as a standard cloud service where you get the web service. And with Azure AD, you do all the authentication towards the whole Microsoft ecosystem. So both options are perfectly fine, whatever you prefer. Yes. So the question is whether, so we've seen the display as well as the pop-up of the dox42 of the document that was generated to just be there visualized. The only thing that probably would need to be done in this case for the question where could it be automatically previewed as an overlay out of the box for example, for UX. And the way is just that either you pick up we create a stream that you could then visualize, or you just visualize for example, as the document that would be saved to SharePoint, if that would be an option. I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to just post them in the chat again. I can provide in the meantime is, again, for those that haven't participated yet, here is your QR code to go ahead and win the Star Wars Lego. Just checking if there are more questions coming in. Yeah, the question about the free trial, we posted the link. So just feel free to reach out via the contact form there as well. We're happy to do the demo.
Yeah, so of course, what we've shown today, we can always personalize to you and your scenario. So we can have like a demo based on the systems you're using, based on the documents you want to automate. Always happy to do that. Yeah, and I'm just gonna post as well in the chat how you can sign up for the free trial and also for a personal demo, online demo, if you have a scenario.
Perfect. By the way, Sierra, in the meantime, we have a little bit more of sun. So hoping this will make its way all the way across Europe to get to you.
it shows me that I should be more positive. I said before, for sure it's going to rain when the weekend's starting, but actually.
Sounds a lot like you're looking forward to a cozy weekend, but then the weather is also doesn't matter, right?
True. Then another question has just come in. Where is dox42 document generated? Data security question.
Yes, so it depends. If it's on the on-prem installation or maybe even your Azure, then of course it's generated on that very service or your server that you've designed for. If it's in our cloud application, it's generated on that server, but there is no data saving at all. There is data processing, and for all of this, we have all the standards, of course, with the ISO certifications, with the data processing agreements, etc. So as you've seen in the reference cases, there's of course, for example, some pharmaceutical customers that have very, very high levels of audits that we had to go through, and those we have. So data security is something we deal with, of course, in the cloud context quite often, but we have answers to it. Perfect.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? We have a little bit of time before the next session.
In case you have some questions also afterwards, you can always contact us. Maybe you can just switch to the contact slide so that they can already have our contact details. Yeah. dox42 ecosystem was the question. So is this referring to dox42 partner network? Is this referring to the applications we can integrate, or can you be more specific about that question? What you mean with that? In general. So in general, so to say, dox42, so we have around 100 partners in the ecosystem. So if you can view that as an ecosystem, so that they come there in different countries, they do different implementation, they work like with customers from different industries and different programs and different applications. So basically, I would say that dox42 is quite a broad product that can be used across all industries and across all applications. And I think our partner ecosystem really helps us with the implementation there.
There is what I could quickly show if on our homepage. I hope that the contact generation was not so frustrating that you broke your keyboard. But if you go to the company, there's the partner site, and that's where you can find all of the different partners, technology partners, across all the different technologies.
And of course, we're always looking also to grow our ecosystem and partner network. So if you're interested in becoming a partner, just contact us and let us know, and we would be happy to talk to you.
For example, even if we want, for example, to show this to somebody or to some colleagues, we try to make our homepage as interactive as possible. So, for example, if you want to show them CE, there is a good way where you have small demos, trials, most of what we've discussed, and also the way to contact us with a demo. All right. Approaching the end.
I think that's everything. Thanks again. That was a really great session. I don't know if you heard me before because my camera was being funny. It is actually quite sunny here now, but we had a hailstorm before that, so pretty standard, 10 minutes difference between the two.